What is going on, my YouTubers and YouTubettes? It's Jahji here, and welcome back to another reaction video. Now, as we all know, the MLB has been essentially taken over by Japanese players. These are men who come over from Japan, and they are extremely disciplined, and they earn each and every one of their at-bats, or innings if they're pitchers. However, this year, there are two Japanese players in particular that are taking the MLB by storm. Now, one has broken the chains and all bounds and borders of the sport, and the other's a fair newcomer. But what makes this all intriguing is that both teams seem destined to clash. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna take a look into each of these players, their profiles, and then as always, we'll congregate, we'll discuss, and come to a final evaluation on if this is all a fluke, or are we really about to see two titans of a nation clash in the biggest event in the entire sport. So if you guys like in-depth MLB videos such as this one, please make sure you subscribe, you like, you comment down below your favorite team, and you share this video with a friend who likes baseball too. It really helps the channel. And without further ado, let's get into the video.
Welcome to 2025 Shohei Ohtani as the show continues to roll. Oh my goodness! Shohei Ohtani! Wow!
In March of 2019, Ichiro Suzuki walked off a baseball field in Tokyo for the last time, took a microphone, and said something that nobody in America really paid attention to.
This is a happy occasion. When I retired that night in Tokyo, I had an incomplete feeling because the great fans of Seattle could not be there.
Shohei needs to be the world's greatest player. There aren't other players in the world like him with his size and quickness. At that exact moment, Shohei Ohtani wasn't the world's greatest player. He wasn't even close. He was a 24-year-old kid recovering from Tommy John surgery.
And before he continues to go into Shohei's career, just so you guys know how important a shout out from Ichiro is, this man is looked at as a god over in Japan. You saw how Shohei bowed for a few seconds there? That's a sign of deep respect. And the amazing part is that Shohei's won like 2 or 3 MVPs. He has 2 World Series rings. He's in the 50-50 club. This man has accomplished a lot. And if you put Ichiro next to him, to this day, he'll still bow that same way, like he's a 24-year-old rookie all over again. It is the man who since then has signed the biggest contract in Major League Baseball history. This is a man who has since then signed a contract for over $650 million. Just so you guys know the deep respect that not just all of Major League Baseball fans have for Ichiro, but specifically the Japanese people. So hopefully that helped you understand the importance of Ichiro acknowledging you.
Just finished his first MLB season with the Angels. He couldn't pitch. He was going to spend the next year as a designated hitter and nothing else. Ichiro was retiring with 4,367 hits between Japan and America. First ballot Hall of Famer in waiting. The greatest contact hitter the sport had ever seen. And on his way out of the door, he looked at a half-broken two-way experiment from the Angels and essentially said, "That kid over there is going to be the best thing baseball has ever produced." Everybody smiled and nodded and moved on. 6 years
I don't know about broken experiment, but we'll let it ride for now.
later, on a Friday night in October at Dodger Stadium, the entire sport finally understood what Ichiro had been trying to tell them.
His first pitch of the day. Ohtani is all over it. A towering shot in the air to right, and it is gone!
Crushed.
To understand why Ichiro's warning mattered, you'd have to understand what Shohei Ohtani was to a kid growing up in Japan in the early 2000s. Ohtani has said it himself. Growing up, Ichiro wasn't a baseball player. He was a different species, larger than life, a superstar with a kind of charisma that didn't exist anywhere else in the sport. Ohtani said the way kids look at him now is the way he used to look at Ichiro. That's the relationship. That's the weight of what Ichiro said on that stage in 2019. And it wasn't just a retirement speech. Before Ohtani ever threw a pitch in the major leagues, he flew to America and did something most rookies would never dream of doing. He went to Ichiro's house. Ichiro gave him some technical advice. Then he said the thing Ohtani has repeated for the rest of his career: you should believe in your talents, in what you've done, and in your potential. Ohtani said later that
it's insane how something so small can be so important. I know a lot of people have probably bantered onto you in your life about confidence this and confidence that, but it's true. The things you can get done when you simply believe in yourself, and I'm not talking about just repeating to yourself, I can do this, I can do this. I'm talking about you genuinely in your heart believe that you can do something. You'll be able to do it 9 times out of 10. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't some luck involved or other variables, but my point being is that something as simple as belief can take you very far with your goals. And connecting it to baseball and on a major level sports, for my athletes out there, think about a time where you really struggled. What do we do the most? We think about thousands of ways of how to fix that slump. We start making things very complex. And in reality, once we finally do snap out of that slump, we look back at it and we say, oh, this was just a simple tweak. I kept dropping my shoulder on a fastball, so that caused me to pop up on everything. Now, that's a very basic example, but you get the point I'm trying to make. So again, for my younger athletes out there, whenever you hit a road in the wall, just remember, don't make things too complex. Look at the simple things, your fundamentals, and a lot of the times that's where you'll find the key.
His words were the start of him changing. They were the thing that pushed him to evolve. Every year his idol told him, you have to keep evolving or the rest of the world catches up. So when Ichiro stood at his own retirement in 2019 and called Ohtani the future greatest player in the world, it wasn't hype. It was a man handing over the torch to a kid he had been privately mentoring. And that was the moment the rest of baseball should have paid attention. Instead, the narrative went in a completely different direction. Because the truth is, for the next of the 3 years, Shohei Ohtani was a curiosity, a science experiment, a really fun highlight reel stuck on a bad Angels team that never really made the playoffs. He was putting up...
Now, this is the second video that I've seen where they've kind of downplayed Shohei's hype. No. Are we suffering from recency bias or something? Whatever it is, I very clearly remember there being questions about Ohtani's game, but the hype was always there. Everybody knew that he was going to become the next big thing. Literally, his biggest question was he can only hit high school pitching. He fixed it with the little toe tap thing, and I think it was his first spring training, and he's been off and running ever since. Even with his pitching, he's had some downs, but we'll get into his statistics later. This guy is elite in both ends of the field, and I don't think that's ever been in question from the moment he's been on the MLB's radar. Sorry. You guys let me know.
Numbers that hadn't been seen since Babe Ruth. He won an MVP in 2021.
The National League Championship Series most valuable player.
That didn't come out of nowhere.
Goes to the best player on this planet, Shohei Ohtani. Congratulations.
He won another one in 2023.
And the MVP, no doubter for Shohei.
And the entire time, there was this quiet voice in the back of everyone's head asking the same question. Is he actually the best player in the world? Or is he just the most unique? Because unique and best are not the same thing. Ichiro had said it best.
No, Ohtani's the best player in the world. And I believe the doubts were quieted a few years ago at this point.
And by October 2023, Ohtani's right elbow was in pieces again. A second Tommy John surgery, no pitching in 2024, and in Game 2 of the 2024 World Series, he slid into second base and tore the labrum in his non-throwing shoulder. He finished that series playing in real pain, going 1 for 11 after the injury.
Good. Shohei making sure the Kirk is okay there.
The Dodgers won the title anyway. Ohtani got his first ring, but the question was louder than ever. Could the two-way thing actually survive another full year? Was the best player in the world really just a DH with a broken body? Nothing about the start of 2025 made the answer feel obvious. Ohtani didn't throw a single pitch in the major leagues until June 16th, 8 months after labrum surgery. Still on a pitch count, still being babied by the Dodgers medical staff, his first outing lasted 28 pitches and 1 inning. The Dodgers themselves were a mess. They started the season 23-10, and everyone whispered about them breaking the single season wins record. Then reality hit. Over the next 110 games, they were almost exactly a .500 team. Their rotation was hurt, their bullpen was an open wound, their lineup disappeared for weeks at a time. At the lowest point during a trip to Baltimore in early September.
See, but that's the difference between the Dodgers and every other team in the league. Yes, they've had seasons where they win over 100 games, but notice how for the most part, their collective superstars barely play together. Like there's always somebody hurt or somebody resting, or there's always some type of story. But the key is that they always have a backup who can freaking rake, or if it's pitching, who can pump. For every Blake Snell that goes down, they have a Roki Sasaki to come in and replace him. For every bullpen arm that goes down, they have another dude throwing 100 miles an hour. When Mookie stops hitting, well, there's Andy Pages. So yes, they do still have the largest payroll. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is that it's not so much the superstars that are winning them the World Series, because how many teams haven't we seen in the past throw money at a team and they don't succeed? The Mets. But it's about their depth. And Dodgers have a lot of that. And that is a major key to their success and winning a championship in general.
Dave Roberts called a team meeting just to try to get his guys to believe in themselves again. This was the defending champion with the highest payroll in the sport, and the manager was giving motivational speeches to save the season. Ohtani, through all of it, was doing Ohtani things. He hit 55 home runs, he stole 20 bases, he posted a 1.014 OPS, he broke Babe Ruth's modern-day record for runs, scored in a season with 146. On the mound, in limited action, he had a 2.87 ERA.
Ohtani, did he? Ohtani!
On command.
Ohtani has done it again! His third home run!
But October came, and the slump came with it. The wild card round against Cincinnati was fine. He hit 2 homers in Game 1, and the Dodgers swept. Then it started getting quiet. The NLDS against Philadelphia, he was almost invisible at the plate. And then came the NLCS against Milwaukee. The Brewers had the best record in baseball, 97 wins, the most dangerous pitching staff the Dodgers had seen all year. And from the moment the series started, they treated Shohei Ohtani like he was prime Barry Bonds. Left-hander after left-hander, intentional walks, 4 pitch around jobs, a respect level bordering on fear, and there was...
Alright guys, you let me know. At this point, maybe he's not on Barry Bonds' level, but can we say he's pretty close? I mean, 60 homers is no joke, and it's not like his home run output was low before then or after. So it may be crazy, but at this point, Ohtani may just be this generation's Barry Bonds and Babe Ruth.
It was ugly. Through the first 3 games, Ohtani was 2 for 11 with 0 home runs and 5 strikeouts. Going into Game 5, across his last 7 postseason games, he was battling .103, 1 extra base hit, an 8-game homer drought after hitting 55 in the regular season. The story writers were sharpening their knives. The greatest regular season player on earth was shrinking in the moment that...
Damn, look at that head. Holy crap. Look at that. Yo, you know what it reminds me of? Do you guys remember that movie? Hi, I'm Paul. Did he use that voice? Or was it more like, hi, I'm Paul? For those that don't know, Paul is a movie about an alien from back in the day if you want to go check it out.
Actually mattered. Again. The two-way thing looked like a regular season novelty, not a championship weapon. The Dodgers were up 3-0 in the series. It didn't matter. People wanted to know if Ohtani could actually show up when it counted. And the scariest part was that he hadn't pitched in nearly 2 weeks since his quality start in Game 1 of the NLDS against the Phillies. 12 days of rest, a body still not fully trusted by the team that paid him $700 million. On October 17th, Ohtani walked onto the Dodgers Stadium mound with one job: save the narrative, prove Ichiro right. He walked the first batter, then he struck out Jackson Chourio on a 100.3 mile-per-hour fastball. He struck out Christian Yelich on another 100 mile-per-hour fastball. He struck out William Contreras on a sweeper, 3 up, 2 on base, 3 strikeouts to end the inning. Then he ran to the dugout, strapped on his helmet, grabbed his batting gloves, and walked straight back out to the plate. Jose Quintana was on the mound for the Brewers. Full count, 3-2. Quintana threw a fastball. Ohtani hit it 446 feet, 115.6 miles per hour off the bat, deep into the right field pavilion. The first leadoff home run by a starting pitcher in Major League Baseball history. Not this year, not this decade, ever. Not even Babe Ruth did that. In the 4th inning, Ohtani came up again. Brewers reliever Chad Patrick threw him a cutter. Ohtani hit it 469 feet at 116.9 miles per hour. The ball cleared the pavilion roof in right center field. It literally left Dodger Stadium, rolled off into the concession area on the other side. Back on the mound, the Brewers still hadn't scored, still didn't have an answer for him. He was throwing splitters the Brewers missed on every single swing. In the 7th inning, Ohtani came to the plate for his third at-bat. The crowd at Dodger Stadium was on its feet, chanting MVP before the pitch was even thrown. He hit a line drive 113.6 miles per hour to straightaway center field. Gone. 3 home runs, 1,342 combined feet, the 3 hardest hit balls of the night, the 3 farthest hit balls of the night. Meanwhile, on the mound, the line read 6+ scoreless innings, 2 hits, 3 walks, 10 strikeouts. He led every pitcher in the game in whiffs. He threw the 11 hardest pitches of the night. He was the first pitcher in history to hit 3 home runs and strike out 10 in the same postseason game. He was the first player in 83 years to hit 3 home runs in a game he started as a pitcher. The last one to do it was Jim Tobin for the Boston Braves in 1942. When the Dodgers finally took Ohtani out of the game,
I hear all these conspiracy theorists talking about Ohtani's a robot and all this, and while I don't necessarily believe that, this dude is out of this world. I've seen some great players, and I've even seen great players come up and break record after record. Ichiro, for example. But this man is doing things that it's unfathomable with the output that Major League Baseball players are expected to put out on one side of the field, and he's doing both. A lot of people are rushing to ask Shohei Ohtani many questions, but I think the people who we should be asking the questions to are his parents. What did they feed the kid? How did he grow up? What were they teaching him? Because as far as baseball, he is as close to perfect as you can get, quite simply.
After the first 2 battlers reached in the 7th, 52,883 people at Dodger Stadium stood up at the same time. A complete stadium ovation for a man who spent the previous 2 weeks being called a choker by half the baseball internet.
But I finally got the bet out one time. I think it was
how
like
quickly they forget.
Dave Roberts said afterward it was probably the greatest postseason performance of all time.
Yeah, that was probably the greatest postseason performance of all time. And
Max Muncy, his teammate, said it was the single best performance in the history of baseball, and he couldn't wait to show it to his kids someday.
Really, really incredible. And I know you didn't ask, but this one feels even better because we witnessed probably the single greatest game by a baseball player ever today.
Freddie Freeman said you sometimes have to check yourself and touch him to make sure he's not just made of steel.
While he's hitting, I was marveled at the fact that he was rehabbing Tommy John last year and doing 50-50.
And the Brewers outfielder Blake Perkins said something even more telling. He said that he didn't know,
and yeah, I was a little like, oh shoot, I gotta get
if Ohtani was the greatest player ever, but he sure seemed like it that night. That's the word Ichiro used in 2019. Greatest. Not unique, not interesting, not historic, greatest. The Dodgers swept the Brewers. Ohtani was named NLCS MVP essentially on the strength of one game. They went to the World Series against Toronto. Ohtani reached base 9 times in Game 3 alone.
Before he gets into it, I would just like to say that World Series against Toronto last year was easily one of the greatest World Series ever. I've seen many of them, some since I've been a fan, and I went back and rewatched World Series from even before I was born. And 7 games with as many back and forths as there was, the Dodgers were like 2 outs away from losing the entire thing. And I know this probably has no correlation, but even when he doesn't intend to, he's breaking records. Of course, the greatest World Series ever played has to have the greatest baseball player to ever live starring in it.
A postseason record, and tied a single-game World Series record set in 1906 for extra base hits. The Dodgers won Game 7 in 11 innings.
And the Los Angeles Dodgers have won the National League pennant. They sweep the Brewers.
In one of the greatest baseball games ever played. Back-to-back titles, a second ring for Ohtani in as many years with the team. And somewhere in Seattle, the man who had been inducted into the Hall of Fame earlier that year, the first Japanese-born player ever elected to Cooperstown, was watching his prophecy come true in real time. Because here's what everybody missed in 2019. When Ichiro Suzuki said Ohtani needed to be the world's greatest player, he wasn't making a prediction, he was giving an instruction. He was passing something on. He was telling the kid who once sat in his living room that the bar was already higher than anyone else in the world had set it, and it was his job to clear it. Ohtani spent the next 6 years clearing it, and now the records are almost embarrassing. 3 MVPs, 2 rings, 55 homers in a season. Babe Ruth's runs scored record, the first player in history to hit 50 homers and steal 20 bases in multiple seasons. 10 straight years with at least 10 home runs and 10 steals, tying an Ichiro record. A 40-game on-base streak that is still alive heading into the 2026 season. He's now doing to the record books what Ichiro did to the hit totals. He is rewriting them faster than anyone can keep up. The thing about prophecies in sports is that they almost always age badly. Hall of Famers pick favorites and get it wrong. Legends hype up the next generation, and the next generation crumbles under the weight of the expectation. Ichiro Suzuki did not get it wrong. He saw a 24-year-old DH coming off Tommy John surgery on a losing team and told the entire sport that this kid was going to become the greatest player in the world. Nobody listened. Not really. Not until one Friday night in October when Shohei Ohtani threw 100 miles per hour, hit the ball 469 feet, and finally forced the world to look up from its phone and understand what his idol had been saying the whole time. The torch didn't just get handed over, it got lit on fire. And somewhere in the cosmic scoring system of baseball, the old man who did it first got it right.
Alright, so that's the end of the video for the National League Japanese player that is taking the league by storm. Now, Ohtani, that's nothing new. I even dislike how he essentially insinuated that people didn't realize Ohtani's potential until his Dodgers tenure, when that just isn't true. Ohtani was a man who, from the moment he was posted by his team, was hyped up as the next big thing, even bigger than that. The question was, how soon can it translate? And obviously it took a few years of growing pains, but you guys saw it. By 2021, he was already winning MVPs. However, again, Ohtani's a guy who's seen it all, done it all. 3 MVPs, 2 championships, and may compete for his 3rd this season. But in this year's World Series, I think Ohtani's gonna be facing a completely different opponent. Let's get into the video.
Nobody wanted, who still ended up dominating MLB. A player so overlooked that many teams saw him as a future bust and not worth signing, despite being a superstar in Japan. Yes, that player is Munetaka Murakami, who, after signing with the White Sox, has shattered MLB records and almost single-handedly carried the team to a winning record. But how did one of the greatest power hitters in Japanese history manage to fly under the radar of every other MLB team? Well, to find out, we first need to go back to Japan in 2021. It's December 15th, and Murakami has just won MVP at the highest level of Japanese baseball at just 21 years old. He had crushed a league-best 39 home runs, establishing himself as one of the brightest young stars in the country. But his success hadn't come out of nowhere.
I believe that he even broke the single-season home run record that O had set. I don't know his first name, I don't want to butcher it and get it wrong, but he is recognized as having the record for most home runs. I think he had something like 858 career home runs. Well, Munetaka broke his single season home run record. And one interesting piece about teams being skeptical about him coming into the league, I don't know if you guys have noticed a trend, but to me, it's always the hyped up Japanese prospects that end up doing terrible. And then it's the ones who people have a lot of questions about that end up breaking the boundaries of any and all expectations that were set on their career. Ohtani and Murakami being 2 examples of that. But you guys let me know if I'm crazy or if you've noticed a trend as well.
See, ever since he was 5 years old, Murakami had been enrolled in private baseball academies. And as he grew older, he became an imposing figure on the field, standing at 6'2" and weighing over 200 pounds. As a result, he developed unbelievable power, launching 52 home runs throughout high school. So by the time he started playing professionally, nobody was too surprised by his production at the plate. However, there was one major problem with his game. As is typical with many power hitters, Murakami struggled to make consistent contact, leading to a concerningly high amount of strikeouts. In fact, in 2019, he set the record for the most strikeouts by a Japanese player in history. So even though he drew a lot of walks, scouts grew concerned that his tendency to swing and miss would eventually catch up to him. Though in 2022, he would make all of those doubts.
You guys gotta remember, having so much power, it's difficult to stop that swing. You're essentially butchering your hands as fast as you can through the air. Now, the more power you have, obviously, the more difficult it becomes. And this was a dude that was being compared to Babe Ruth. Why don't you try real quick swinging your hands as fast as you can? Now, I'm talking about as fast as you can. But in the middle of that swing, just try and stop it. Hold it. It has to be right before halfway, and you let me know how difficult that is. Now imagine a man with that power.
Disappear, at least for the time being. To start the season, Murakami exceeded even the highest of expectations. In July, he became the first player in league history to hit a home run in 5 straight plate appearances, and by the end of August, he had racked up 50 home runs on the year. Not to mention, he was drawing more walks and striking out less than ever before. Murakami was dominant in every aspect at the plate, with one of his teammates saying this: "He's a special human being and everything you want in a superstar. He's still so young and he's taken the whole country by storm. People are waiting at hotels just to get a glimpse of him. It's like playing with a rock star." On the final day of the season, Murakami hit his 56th home run, breaking the record for the most ever in Japan's history. He went on to win the Triple Crown, and unsurprisingly, his second MVP in a row. So by this point, Murakami was undoubtedly a superstar in his home country, but he was about to introduce himself to the rest of the world. In 2023, Murakami took the field for Japan in the World Baseball Classic, and despite a rough start to the tournament, he would end up delivering when it mattered the most. In the semifinals against Mexico, Japan would enter the bottom of the 9th inning.
Matter of fact, I'm not sure how many of you guys out there play MLB The Show, but I feel like his introduction to us all was not just through the actual World Baseball Classic, but was also through the game. Now, his vision was terrible. It still remains terrible, but man, the power that they put on that card was ridiculous. I remember hitting bombs left and right. I had people rage quitting in Diamond Dynasty with that card. Let me know if you guys play MLB The Show.
By 1, and after a leadoff double from Shohei Ohtani followed by a walk, the game was suddenly in the hands of Murakami, who in his first 4 at-bats had struck out 3 times, meaning that this was his chance to redeem himself. And sure enough, he finally connected, hitting a walk-off double, sending Japan to the championship for the first time in 14 years. But he wasn't done quite yet. In the final, he hit a game-tying home run as Japan went on to defeat the United States and win the World Baseball Classic. At that moment, Murakami was on top of the world, and with only a few years left before he could make the jump to MLB, a massive payday seemed inevitable, or at least, that's what everyone thought. Over the next few years, Murakami would suffer multiple injuries which stunted his performance. First a fractured toe, then an elbow surgery, and finally an oblique injury in 2025, which caused him to miss a significant amount of games. However, while these injuries were definitely concerning, the biggest question was still his approach at the plate. His strikeout rate remained extremely high in a league where pitching velocity is much lower on average compared to MLB. And as one sports writer pointed out, his contact rate tanks against fastballs 93 miles an hour and above. And of the 390,173 fastballs thrown in MLB this year, 62.8% of them were at least 93 miles an hour. To make things worse, Japanese hitters already had a long history.
I just want you guys to remember those stats for a little further along in the video.
Seeing their strikeout rates rise after making the jump to MLB. So unfortunately, when Murakami was finally posted to MLB in November of 2025, he was almost entirely overlooked. However, there was one team that was still willing to give him a chance. On December 21st, just one day before his signing window closed, Murakami struck a deal with the Chicago White Sox, a team that had lost over 100 games in 3 straight seasons and were not in the market to spend tons of money. But with the doubts surrounding Murakami, they were able to sign him for just $34 million, 2-year deal, I believe. This is a man who was projected to earn in a rock bottom market $80 million, and he made out with 2 years $34 million. The average projection was easily over 100 million. And so when you have so many teams get this one thing wrong, when they're all looking at analytics, that should tell you right there that no matter how technologically sound AI and baseball stats get, there's always going to be that human element that you have to watch out for. And that's what it seems like not just baseball, but plenty of other sports are getting away from. Heck, Jaylen Brown was about to get traded from the Boston Celtics, came out and said the NBA is dominated by AI, and this is something that's been out in the news cycle in the last 48 hours. So it's like a sports-wide epidemic. Are analytics and statistics, are those good for the sport? Yes. Should they be the end-all be-all? No, because then your team ends up missing out on a player like Munetaka Murakami, a man who has completely switched a franchise around. Over 2 years, a deal which gave the White Sox enormous upside with not much risk, and it wouldn't take long for the rest of baseball to realize what they had missed out on. he made his debut on opening day 2026, starting at first base. And in just his second at bat, he would connect for his first hit, a solo home run. But this was only the beginning. In fact, Murakami would end up homering in each of his first 3 games, becoming the first White Sox player in history to do so. Nonetheless, Murakami wasn't satisfied, especially considering the White Sox had lost all 3 of those games. You see, his #1 priority was winning. Having said this after his first home run, "I'm happy I was able to take the first step as a Major League Baseball player, but at the end of the day, we lost the game.
That's right.
This is what I'm mostly disappointed about." Now, of course, he couldn't single-handedly carry the White Sox to victory every single night, but his energy, intensity, and winning mindset had an immediate impact on the team and its fan base, and before long, he was making history once again. In April, he tied the MLB record by hitting a home run in 5 straight games as a rookie, and by the beginning of May, he led the entire league with 13 home runs. But maybe even more impressively, all of his hits to that point had either been singles or home runs. In fact, when he hit his 14th, he set the MLB record for the most home runs to start a career without a double or triple. Though on May 4th, this streak would eventually come to an end, as he legged out a double en route to a 6-0 victory. By this point, teams were starting to realize that they had made a huge mistake passing on Murakami, because as one sports writer pointed out on May 8th, he is the only player in MLB to hit multiple home runs off pitches 98 miles an hour or above, and his 9 home runs off hard pitches, fastballs, sinkers, cutters are the most.
So that was gonna be one of the things I was gonna get into later on, and I still have more to add to this. But yes, what people thought was going to be Murakami's biggest deficiency has actually come out to be one of his biggest skills. In a sport dominated by men throwing 100-mile-an-hour fastballs, Murakami is a fastball killer
in the game as well. So not only had Murakami adapted to MLB pitching, he was one of the best hitters in baseball against high velocities, a stat which nobody could have predicted before the season began. But this wasn't the only part of his game that had been a pleasant surprise for the White Sox. In Japan, he had spent most of his time at third base with below average stats on defense. But after moving to first base to start the season, he had made multiple incredible plays in just his first few weeks. So at this point, it seemed like Murakami's goal was to prove every doubter completely wrong, and his production at the plate somehow continued to reach new heights. On May 16th, he recorded his first multi-home run game against the Cubs, and around a week later, he became the first rookie in history to hit 20 home runs before June. For the month, Murakami blasted 8 home runs while posting a .937 OPS, earning him Rookie of the Month. But despite his historic start to the season, there were reasons to believe that he would eventually come down to earth. While he continued to draw walks extremely often, he was striking out even more than expected in around 33% of his plate appearances, which in part was due to his swing and miss rate, which ranked among the worst in all of baseball. But these concerns turned out to be the least of his worries, as Murakami's revenge tour would soon come to a sudden halt. On May 30th, Murakami appeared to be in pain after a hard sprint to beat out a double play, and after a visit from the team's trainer, he would immediately exit the game, before being placed on the injured list due to a sprained hamstring. This was a devastating blow for Murakami, as he'd be out for 4 to 6 weeks, likely killing any chances of winning Rookie of the Year. Nonetheless, in just over 2 months, Murakami had already left a massive mark on his team and baseball itself.
That's a nice shot.
Before he made his debut, the White Sox were dead in the water, having lost over 100 games for 3 years in a row. But following his arrival, they've completely turned things around, leading the American League Central nearly halfway through the season. Now, of course, this is not entirely due to Murakami, but there's no denying the impact he's had, because outside of his insane numbers, he's boosted attendance and jersey sales and become the face of a team that has a chance to contend for the first time in years. So for now, it's safe to say that Murakami has proved everyone wrong, and at just 26 years old, his story is far from over.
So there you have it. You have Shohei Ohtani of the National League versus Munetaka Murakami of the American League. let's dive into some stats here and get a final overview on what the outlook of this potential matchup could be. So I pulled up Baseball Savant here, and these are Munetaka's stats as of June 30th. He's still stuck at 20 homers. He's hitting 240 with a 378 on base percentage. As you can see to the right, everything's all red and in the 95th to 99th percentile. This man is no joke. And while I was looking at his page earlier, one thing that popped out at me was this right here. So Munetaka this year is hitting 264 against fastballs. You take him to breaking pitches and he's hitting 190. Breaking pitches was something that they thought Mune would be able to handle. These stats right here should tell you exactly what Ohtani Murakami is going to see the rest of this season and whether he is going to succeed or not. Obviously, we've all heard of the sophomore slump, and that's almost always due to the league adjusting. Well, the league is seeing this, meaning Ohtani Murakami is going to start seeing a healthy diet of breaking pitches. So if he doesn't get this batting average up right here, I think that's going to single-handedly decide just how much impact Munetaka will play throughout his career. Now, I do want to get into standings here, but before I do, let's go ahead and check out Shohei Ohtani's statistics. Now, for the 2026 season, he is easily front runner for the Cy Young. As you see here, all red. ERA, velo, K percentage, walk percentage. He's previously had great pitching seasons. You can see here 2023 3.14 ERA, but a 1.58 on top of, let me just show you guys real quick, on top of hitting 18 homers, 297 average, and a 412 on base clip. And again, all red. Yeah, he whiffs a little bit, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. These are two men that are easily carrying their team to the tops of their divisions. Now, the last thing I want to close out with is this. As of this recording on June 30th, the Chicago White Sox are sitting at first place by 1 game at 44 wins and 39 losses. And barring Armageddon, the Dodgers are running away with the NL West all over again. So when we take the records into account, and then we take into account the fact that this year, league-wide, for whatever reason, there are an insane amount of just average to terrible teams. And if you don't believe me, look at this. The Seattle Mariners, who are currently in place for that third wildcard spot, are a 500 team. Everybody below them, all 9 teams, under 500. Now that's just the American League. Let's take a look at the National League here. So surprisingly, the NL is faring a little better as far as teams under 500. They only have 4 of them. But I had stated average to terrible teams. So that would include another 4 teams in San Diego, Pittsburgh, Washington, and Arizona. Now, that's not the crazy part. What's crazy is the fact that all of these teams, despite being under 500, are still within reach of the wild card. Look at this. The Oakland Athletics, who are 40 wins, 45 losses, and they're only 2.5 games outside of that wild card. So let me go ahead and wrap up my point with a nice bow for you. I bring these records up and the fact that the league seems to be suffering from loser syndrome. I don't know what else you want me to call it. If there was ever a time where a team was going to randomly go from worst to first and win the whole damn thing, this is the season. And with Munetaka taking the baseball world by storm, I know he's had some setbacks with his injury, but rest assured he's going to be in that top 5 home run hitters by the end of the season. Ohtani, same old story with him, except now he's even better. He's not only hitting at an elite level, he's pitching at an elite level. And unless all of their star players get hurt and their backups, I don't see a team coming out of the National League that's not named the Los Angeles Dodgers. So with that being said, guys, I know the Tampa Bay Rays are tough. The New York Yankees are always going to be a decent squad when you have Aaron Judge on your team. But apart from that, the AL is wide open. So a Los Angeles Dodgers versus Chicago White Sox World Series in 2026 really doesn't seem all that crazy when you take things into perspective. So you guys let me know what you think. This was me just being a baseball head, looking at some stats here, and it quickly became apparent to me that the Chicago White Sox are very real contenders. We're a little more than halfway into the season, and while everybody's been expecting some type of fall off, they've had injuries upon injuries, and they're still in first place. So you guys let me know, are we gonna be seeing a White Sox and LA Dodgers World Series this year? Are the two biggest names in the Japanese baseball realm today going to get an opportunity to clash for who rules supreme over their country? Now I know Shohei is Shohei, but if Munetaka can come in and win a World Series in year 1, those discussions may be very legit. Also, if you think I have this completely wrong and you think I'm batshit crazy, please let me know what you think is going to be this year's World Series matchup. I would also love to hear who you think is going to be this year's most impactful trade. As we all know, it's pretty much tradition at this point that every World Series contending team has that one impactful player that they wouldn't be in that deep postseason run without. So who do you think that's going to be this year? All of your answers, please leave them down below. And if you like baseball deep takes such as this one, please make sure you sub, you like, and you share with a friend who likes the sport as well. Make sure you also watch out for my WWE weekly power ranking I release every Sunday called Fallout. And for anybody just looking for content to watch while they're bored, I have plenty of body cam reactions for you. So thank you so much for subscribing, it really helps me out. We've been jumping up a fair amount over the last couple of weeks. I love to see more and more people every day becoming a G and GZ. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And until next time, Jahji, out!